नमस्ते वेलकम टु पिरियडका कुरा म हुँ प्रियङ्का
नमस्ते अनि म हुँ सृष्टि हामी अहिले पनि डिसेम्बरमै छौँ अर्थात् मर्यादित महिनावारी महिना गत डिसेम्बर 8मा मर्यादित महिनावारी दिवस मनायौँ विभिन्न कार्यक्रमहरूको आयोजना भयो नेपालमा पनि बाहिर पनि र यो पालिको थीम चाहिँ मर्यादित रजोनवृत्ति थियो अर्थात् डिग्निफाइड मेनोपज
यो भन्दा अगाडिको एपिसोडमा हामीले रजोनवृत्तिबारे कुरा गर्यौं बिन्दु बस्तीको अनुभव पनि हामीले यहाँलाई सुनायौं रजोनवृत्ति अर्थात् मेनोपज एउटा यस्तो विषय हो जुन बारेमा खासै कुराकानी नै हुँदैन
तर यो कुराकानी नहुने चाहिँ नेपालमा मात्र होइन रहेछ है विश्वको अन्य देशहरूमा समेत यो विषयलाई चाहिँ एकदम चुपचाप राखिएको रहेछ कि त्यसैले आज हामी नेपाल बाहिर जाउँ नेपाल बाहिर के कस्तो छ त सिचुएसन यो बारेमा कतिको कुराकानी हुन्छ यसलाई कसरी हेरिएको छ यसको महत्त्व के कस्तो रहेछ त्यो बारेमा कुराकानी गरौँ
विकसित देशहरू मध्येको एक देश बेलायत त्यहाँको कुरा सुनौँ बेलायतमा रजोनवृत्तिलाई कसरी हेरिन्छ त आज हामी कुरा गर्दैछौँ स्कटल्यान्डकी हेलन केम्पसँग उहाँ डिग्निफाइड मेनोपजको एक्टिभिस्ट हुनुहुन्छ र साथै उहाँले सर्जिकल मेनोपज भन्ने एउटा पुस्तक पनि लेख्नु भएको छ
र आजको एपिसोडको गेस्ट चाहिँ बेलायती नागरिक भएको कारण आज हामी अङ्ग्रेजीमा कुरा गर्दैछौँ
Hi Helen, welcome to our podcast, Period Ka Kura. Hope you are doing well.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I'm absolutely delighted to join you.
All right, so to start with, let's discuss about the topic itself. You know, we are talking about dignified menopause. Actually, we know about dignified menstruation. We have talked about it. But what is dignified menopause exactly?
The idea for a campaign around dignified menopause was, you've touched on the dignified menstruation movement spearheaded by Radha Budal. There's a dawning realization that, yes, we're starting to talk about periods, but there's still a huge taboo, even in the United Kingdom up until perhaps 4 or 5 years ago, around the topic of menopause. And I think we need to look at both of those ends of the spectrum together, i.e. menstruation and menopause, rather than trying to separate them, look at them in isolation. I think if we look at dignified menstruation and pull it all the way through the life cycle to dignified menopause, then you're looking at it from a womb to tomb perspective. And that, I think, is a much better approach. And we chose the word dignity because, in essence, it's the right of a person to be valued for their own sake. And that's really important because we're all precious, we're all important, every single one of us living beings. It shouldn't matter where we're born, the colour of our skin, our gender, race, ethnicity. We all have a right, I think, to lead a free and fair life. And if I consider some of the issues that come up around menopause, it can be very challenging for people, and not just the person going through menopause. I'm talking about their friends and their families and people they work with. And it's also worth just making a point that I will very often refer to women, but of course, it's not just women who go through menopause. It's trans men, non-binary and intersex. And I think that's really important as well to bear in mind so that we're not excluding anybody from the conversation.
So since December is the month of Dignified Menopause campaign, let's talk about this campaign as well. Why do we choose, December, the month for Dignified Menopause? And what's going to happen in this campaign, this whole month of December?
December is going to be extremely busy. And the idea for the Dignified Menopause campaign, that came out of a conversation I had with Radha Budal. And we were chatting about what we could do this year. And I'd taken part in her event last year. And it was just amazing. Joining everybody in Nepal, via Zoom was just absolutely amazing. And the enthusiasm and I think the huge groundswell of support. And we were talking about, what we can do, because it's going to take all of us to continually keep having these conversations and keep chipping away at some of the stigma and the taboo and the shame. And so we just rather foolishly decided we would run an event on International Dignified Menstruation Day, which of course is 8th of December. And so having decided we would run the event, I teamed up with a third person a lady down in Wales, Sarah Williams, who heads up Equality Counts and the Menopause Inclusion Collective. And so the three of us came together to host this event. So it's joining Nepal with Scotland and Wales. And I think that's a rather beautiful triangle. And just advocates are coming together, activists, to shine a global light on menopause, because I've alluded to the fact that I think in the United Kingdom, the debate and the discourse around menopause is becoming very polarized. We seem to have, it's either a pro or an anti-HRT debate, whereas there's a whole world out there who don't even have the choice of access to HRT. And I think it's really important to just try and widen the lens and to shine some light on, as I say, activists, advocates, those who are beavering away behind the scenes to try and make a difference for those who follow behind. So the event is on Wednesday, the 8th of December. We have at the moment over 50 solidarity partners who show their support. So if there's anybody out there, anybody listening who still wants to show their support, we'd love to have you partner with us. Mm-hmm. And it'll just be 3.5 hours of hearing people's experiences and perspectives from all over the globe.
Yes, like it's a very wonderful, very wonderful campaign coming, like all the countries coming together for this such a noble cause. So I think it's going to be very, very fruitful, and leaving a deep impact, positive impact.
That's what we hope, because I think sometimes we just had World Menopause Day, and I think sometimes with these days where we mark a particular event, it's very easy to just have a long build up to it and mark the day, and then it seems to disappear from everybody's consciousness. Whereas if we keep trickling these events out over the course of the year, then I think it just keeps the topic at the forefront of people's minds. Because if I look at United Nations Women website, for example, I was having a look there to see exactly what their stance was around menopause. And there was surprisingly little content on menopause. And if you sort of put that within the framework of the Sustainable Development Goals, you can see how if we want to work towards gender equality, then you really need to be looking at menopause, because you've got this huge tranche of individuals, anywhere from, I say 35 to 55, but you have many people going through an early menopause. Some may be going through menopause at 25 due to treatment for cancer, or perhaps a medical menopause for treatment for endometriosis. So you have very young people going through the menopause as well. So I think it's just trying to, as I say, keep the topic at the forefront of everybody's consciousness.
We agree. It's really fascinating that, globally, that people like you are starting to discuss about menopause, because we belong to a country, even for us talking about period is such a stigma, people don't want to talk about period or even don't want to hear about it. That means menopause is a topic where most of the people do not actually know what it is. So it's good that this sort of conversation or global event is happening so that people will know about menopause.
Right. Also, you mentioned about like how UK or even the US, all these developed countries have been ignoring, we can say, this topic. But as you know, like topics like this, menstruation, menopause are still considered a taboo in this part of the world, particularly in South Asia, in India, in Nepal. So what's your suggestions? How can we deal with this?
I'm going to quote the amazing Texan researcher, Dr. Brené Brown, who says the way to deal with shame and stigma is to put it under the spotlight. And I think if we consider that one of the main drivers around, I think, the reticence to speak about menopause and menstruation is an issue around shame and blood and everything that's associated with that, the way to deal with shame is to bring it out into the open. And I think we have to be willing, if we can, to step forward and have the conversation. Because if I consider myself, perhaps 10 years ago, I would have had a problem saying the word menopause and period and menstruation. And now they are just everyday words to me. And I think that shows how, if by repeated and appropriate use of the language, you can change the perception around it. And also, if you're not saying particular words, you're giving them an awful lot of power. Whereas I'm not suggesting we just completely inappropriately talk about menopause everywhere and anywhere because we think we can, because I don't think shocking people is a particularly helpful tactic, because it's easy to shock, but I think you alienate people. And it's much better if we can all sit down and have a debate or a discussion. So the way to break the taboo and the stigma is through language and through conversations, making these things just everyday topics of conversations, whether that's in the family. I think a lot of these things can start in the home. And if perhaps that's difficult, amongst our peers. So, for example, if you're meeting your friends maybe in a shopping mall or a coffee shop, just broaching the subject there. And I think once you start talking about it, I think it's quite surprising how much people want to talk about it, and how easy it becomes.
Yeah, that's very well said. One of the things that I can link is actually, since we have started this podcast, even a couple of years back, we were following the traditional taboos, the untouchable practice during period at our home. But eventually when we started, reading things out, talking to people, and then we broke that taboo from our home. And now what happens is that even the male members feel comfortable talking about period with us. So we call it as a success in our personal life because we started talking about period at our home, in our community, through this podcast. Since we're talking about, home, I remember in the beginning you said that everyone needs to have a dignified life. People need to live with dignity. How can menopause be handled with dignity?
That's a really good question. And I think a lot of it stems from knowledge. That's knowledge and education. That's very important. And certainly in England, menopause is being taught on the curriculum that's recently started. So education, awareness, and not by making it a topic of comedic value, if you like. I think it can be very easy to perhaps stereotype. Somebody who's going through the menopause is that really person with the red face, dripping with perspiration, they're forgetful, and that I don't think is helpful. So respect, I think having respect for one another and having compassion for one another and empathy. And I think if you have those three, then you are honouring somebody else's experience, whether that's in the workplace or whether that's at home. And I think that just sets the scene to, it's common humanity. I think that's I would say is the bond between all of what we're talking about. And if you take it out with the house and the home, for example, in the workplace, I think we have to look at, and certainly it's being done quite a lot in the United Kingdom, having policies that protect some of the rights of people going through the menopause, much the same way as workers would have certain rights if they are needing time off for childbirth or child rearing. So it's a multi-pronged approach, I think. So it's education, awareness, it's embedding it within culture, because culture is a very, very, very subtle and yet very powerful way, I think, to embed certain words and even entire lexicons within society. So whether that's art, because art can be very powerful.
Yeah, I just got touched by your suggestions, focusing on empathy, focusing on compassion. I think besides awareness, I think those things are also very important, to make people understand, to feel each other and to get connected, and then to realize the importance of such important topic. Yes, throughout the December, we'll be talking about this particular issue, and you mentioned so many things. Also, I would like to know, is there any special or any specific message that you want to convey to the Nepali audience on the occasion of this international event going on?
The one main message would be that dignified menopause is a human right, not a privilege, and every life matters. I think that would be my main message. Yeah.
That's really wonderful. And thank you so much. It was really lovely talking to you.
It was a very short talk, but we believe like it is very effective, to make people understand the value. We believe each menstruator, no matter women or trans community or anyone who menstruates, they deserve a dignity throughout their lives, throughout their whole life.
Absolutely. I could not agree more.
Exactly. So with this note, we've come to an end to this conversation. Thank you very much for your time and your thoughts.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It's been an absolute joy.
महिनावारी रजनवृत्ति सानो स्वरले कुरा गर्ने विषय होइन। घरमा, छिमेक, स्कुल, कार्यालयमा यो विषयमा अझै जानकार हौं र आफू नजिकका महिनावारी हुने व्यक्तिलाई सहयोग गरौं।
And that's all for today. हामी यो विषयमा अन्य एपिसोड्समा पनि कुरा गर्नेछौँ. If you have any suggestions, comments छ भने प्लिज हामीलाई सोशल मिडियामा फेसबुक, ट्विटर, इन्स्टाग्राममा लेख्न सक्नुहुन्छ या हामीलाई इमेल पनि गर्न सक्नुहुन्छ.
periodkakura@gmail.com मा. यति भन्दै आजलाई भने हामी बिदा हुन्छौँ. नमस्ते.
बाई.